the lead instructor, lead facilitator for the Facilitator Certification Program Tier 2, which is going to be starting up in August. So we're extremely excited, and I'm happy to be here. Carrie, next.
Hi, thank you all for being here today. My name is Carrie Stover. I'm the Associate Director of LabX, which is a public engagement program at the National Academy of Sciences in Washington, D.C. And I've been working with the Extreme Event Game since 2015.
Awesome. Noir?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Noir. I'm working with LabX as the marketing manager, and I started only in April of this year, and I've been super excited to learn everything about Extreme Event and see how everyone gets excited for it. So excited for this info session.
Love it. And last but not least, Nia.
Hi, everybody. I am Nia D'Amelio, coming from Burbank, California. I'm the Learning and Events Coordinator for Epicenter Innovation. Love Facilitator Certification Program. I've been on the back end of it. It's very cool. So excited for you guys to learn about it.
Cool. Thanks. And as a reminder, my name is Chris Tarantino. I'll be your guide on this webinar today. Carrie and I are going to go through a bunch of different things in the next few minutes, all of which will be important for you to know whether you're interested in learning how to apply Extreme Event Game to your community or to your workplace, to your school, to your agency. But then also, if you want to get certified, what the process is to get certified, both at the Tier 1 and Tier 2 levels. And if you stick around probably about halfway through the presentation, we're also going to be promoting the Tier 1 and Tier 2 bundle, since we have a Tier 2 cohort for the Facilitator Certification Program starting up in a few weeks. We want to make sure that we can give everyone the opportunity to get in, get certified at the Tier 1 level, which takes about a week or so. You can hustle it and do it a little bit faster if you really want to, but about a week to go through the Tier 1 program. And then Tier 2 is going to be starting, like we'll mention in a little bit, the second week of August. So without further ado, we'll talk a little bit about Extreme Event and just kind of introduce where the game came from. So that way, if you're not super familiar with it, we'll give you the kind of Reader's Digest version of what the game is, how it works, what it is not, and then also how it can be applied in a variety of different contexts. So first, we have a quote here from the former director of the National Hurricane Center: "Preparation through education is less costly than learning through tragedy." The whole idea behind Extreme Event is to put individuals into a simulated disaster scenario so they can feel out how the response, recovery, and coordination processes all work in community. And so we talked through 5 different themes of the Extreme Event Game, as well as the concepts of resource sharing, resource allocation, how we can get different neighborhoods and coalition groups activated before, during, and after disasters. And we do all of those things in an immersive gameplay environment that engages a group of people over the course of 60 to 90 minutes. And so the whole idea here is that we can put people into these scenarios for a short period of time, have a discussion after the fact to show them how to apply what they've learned in the real world. And this is a much safer and much more sustainable way to get people engaged and interested and oriented around disaster incidents in their community. So, Carrie, do you want to talk to us a little bit about where the game came from, give us the idea of how National Academies and LabX play together, and then where the Facilitator Certification Program came from?
Sure. As I mentioned briefly in my intro, LabX is a public engagement program, which is part of the National Academy of Sciences. So the National Academy of Sciences is a private nonprofit based in Washington, D.C. It is both a membership organization, so we have scientists who are members of the academies, and then another part of the institution, the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, is also who writes reports on a variety of topics every year. The institution issues hundreds of reports in the areas of sciences, medicine, and engineering. So one of those reports was from 2012, and it talked about how the United States could be more resilient to both natural and man-made disasters by the year 2030, which is a heck of a lot closer now than it was when the report came out. But also, we thought at LabX, as an entity that is meant to engage the public in important science information, that there was information in that report that was issued that the general public needed to be able to access and access in a way that would, be meaningful to them. Most people are not reading a National Academy of Sciences report. They're really for technical experts and the people who commission us to do the studies. So after a lot of brainstorming, we decided that a game would be the best way to get this information from this highly technical report out to more people. And that's how the Extreme Event game was born. The first module of Extreme Event was Hurricane, and that came out in 2013.
Awesome. And we'll talk about the different scenarios that have since evolved from that. So we now have hurricane, earthquake, and flood. And so, we get a lot of questions around why those certain scenarios, why the game, was built the way that it was. Basically, what the game does is it provides a location agnostic, a location independent way for people to engage in disasters. And so what that means is you're in a fictitious community, handling a fictitious disaster. We are not throwing people into Hurricane Sandy or into a tornado that hit, Omaha, Nebraska. We're talking about a fictitious scenario. So that way everyone is on a level playing field and no one has more or less information than another individual, which means that you can put 12-year-olds alongside your executives and they will have a similar and fun experience learning about disasters. And neither of them will know more than the other person as a result of going through the game because of their background and experience. So it's level playing field and gets everybody engaged and active. Carrie, do you want to talk to us about the Facilitator certification program and how that came about?
Sure. So when Extreme Event was first released to the world in 2013, we put all of the materials free up on our website and, figured people would download them, read the instructions, use them, and be good to go. But what we found a couple of years later was that we started having people contact us and say, this game seems great. I want to use it with my organization, but I don't maybe feel comfortable enough doing it myself. Can you come and show us how it works? Can you facilitate the game for us? Because people wanted to see how it worked before they jumped into facilitating themselves. And my colleague and I at the time, we, for 2 or 3 years kind of ran around the country and even internationally to facilitate the game for all different types of groups of people. And we loved it, but we realized it wasn't sustainable and it wasn't really a way to fully grow the program to the size that we wanted to. So I reached out to Chris, who I had met at a conference couple of years ago, presented him with this problem, and he said, what about a facilitator certification program? That way, people who did not feel comfortable or who wanted just more information and more details about how they could best facilitate the game, they could do that in an easily accessible program. So that's how the facilitator certification program came to be.
Love it. And we recently did win an award for the Facilitator certification program that we're talking about here, the World Changing Ideas Award, awarded by Fast Company. And so really excited for that to kind of get recognized for the work that Extreme Event has done, but then also the unique formatting of the Facilitator certification program as a whole. So we're super excited to be talking to everybody about how this program works. This is the report that Carrie mentioned that the Extreme Event game was born from. And so in this report, we have different definitions of what resilience is. And depending on where you're coming from, I see people from India, the United States, all over the place in this particular interest session. Resilience for your community may mean something completely different than it might mean for my community. And so what the game does is it provides a foundational level for us to begin having deeper conversations around disasters in a non-threatening way. And so while Carrie mentioned, and I believe it's totally true, most people are not going to pick up this report and just thumb through it. I have skimmed it. I have not read it cover to cover. I won't put Carrie on the spot and ask if she's read it cover to cover. I assume she keeps a copy by her bedside. But the idea here is you don't need to read an entire report in order to have an impact and in order to create a more resilient community. So what came out of that report and the game were these 5 main themes. And so what you're going to be trained on in the Facilitator certification program, should you choose to go on and get certified either at the tier 1 or the tier 2 level, is this mix of 5 core themes that drive the Extreme Event gameplay experience. And so you can read them yourself. I'm not going to insult your intelligence by reading them for you. But the idea here is that you have an experience in the room, but then you, as participants, can employ and empower their community to now take that learning and bring it home, bring it to their organization, bring it to their community. So that way they can have more dramatic impacts. And the game then becomes a tool for engagement, for resilience, for preparedness, and can be added to a variety of other opportunities that are engaged in that point. So whether you are an emergency manager and you're running community preparedness fairs, or you're in education in K through 12 or higher education, college, university, you can bring this and advance your curriculum. You can build curriculum off of it. You can also bring it to your library. We recently were at the American Librarians Association and had a bunch of great conversations with librarians from around the country and around the world around how important resilience is for them and for their communities, and how they can use the game to bring people to the table and have those conversations. You can also bring it to your corporate organization. So if you are in, the resilient space or public safety, or even if you're not, even if you're just looking for a team building activity within your organization or your department or whatever, the Extreme Event game is absolutely made for that. And by getting certified, you'll be able to deliver the game much more confidently and with much greater competence than you would just by downloading the materials for free online. Now, this is a good point to mention and reinforce that the game materials are available for free online, and they will continue to be available for free online. You can go ahead and download those at any time just by going to learn.labex.org. You'll see the button to do that. But you'll also see the outline for Tier 1 at that point as well, because downloading the materials is one thing. And what we see from a lot of people is that they're very interested in the game. They download the materials, but then for some individuals, that's where the motivation and the momentum stops. And so the Tier 1 program is there to help enable you to take it to the next level, have some accountability as well as some support to make sure that you're able to deliver it in a way that is effective and efficient, regardless of what your use case may be. So Carrie, talk to us a little bit about what the game is, what it's not, and how people can use it.
Yeah, so the Extreme Event game is a public engagement tool. It was not meant to be a formal training exercise like a lot of folks, I'm sure in the audience, who are emergency managers are used to doing in your careers. This is meant to be a community engagement tool. It can be a really great team building opportunity for people who both do and do not have emergency management or disaster resilience experience. It's a great way to start a conversation if you're trying to engage your community in talking about disasters and preparedness. This is kind of a fun entree into those, tougher, to be honest, bummer conversations that a lot of people don't want to have because they're scary and intimidating. But this is a really fun and interactive way to kind of get people relaxed and ready to talk about things that they just experienced. It is great for ages 14 and up is what it was designed for. I do know that a lot of middle school teachers will use it as well. So for 5th, 6th, 7th graders, a lot of times it fits into the curriculum that you do about extreme weather. So while it was designed for high school and up, it can be used with younger students. And it's just a really innovative outreach activity. It's not something that people have usually seen before, especially in the disaster resilience space. And, it's definitely not you standing in front of a room and just talking at people. As a facilitator, you're just there to guide the interactions and experience that's going on in the room. And even though it is a game, we like to think that we're not like other games. The fact that it is based in science from the national academies is really important to us, and I think really makes it stand out amongst anything that could be remotely close.
Nice. Thanks, Carrie. Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And it's being used all over the world. We have an idea of how many people have gone through the Extreme Event game, but we don't have exact numbers just because we know that it's being delivered all over the country and the world and various times throughout the year. But these are some examples of how Extreme Event game has been used in the past. So in the chat, go ahead and put in how you might use Extreme Event game. Will it be within your department? Will it be as part of your classroom activities? Will it be with your community as part of a resilience fair or some sort of engagement tool for your volunteers? What do you think is one way that you might be able to use Extreme Event? And obviously we may have multiple uses, but feel free to drop those in there. I see Lauren says at an in-person team meeting for sure. It's a great team building experience, kind of, not exactly trauma bonding because you're not exactly going through trauma as part of the game, but you have a shared experience that you actually get to go through together, problem solve together, see how people think. Model template. At the National Capital Region CertCon for sure. Lots of different community emergency response teams or CERTs use Extreme Event Game over time. Volunteer training, engagement of agencies, for sure. All of these are great ideas. And it's an awesome way to supplement what you're already doing to get people talking. So we've used them at the start of different meetings or other team building activities to get people moving around, get people thinking, and kind of prime the pump a little bit. Whereas if you don't have a warm-up technique or tool or experience, maybe your meeting is going to be a little bit more quiet, or maybe you're not going to hear from all the voices that you want to hear from. And so getting people engaged at this level really helps out because it's relatively stress-free. It's not like you're being put on the spot. You're not being called to offer your intelligence, your information. You're just offered to, play a game and experience something with the rest of the room. And so people tend to respond really favorably to this. Extreme Event's been used all over the world, as I mentioned. I think these numbers are probably a little bit low. Like we mentioned, we don't have the data from every Extreme Event game that's been delivered all around the world. But in general, we've seen it across 7 different countries, 4 different continents. I'm still waiting on Carrie to send me to Antarctica to deliver the Extreme Event game down there, but I'll gladly do that one day in the future, I'm sure, so we can start knocking off the rest of the continents. There's a lot of motivation and a lot of momentum behind the Extreme Event game. And as a result, there's a lot of people that are interested in, becoming certified facilitators. So that's what we're going to talk about with the game. If you're interested in learning more about the gameplay, the game mechanics, the phases of the game, how it works, all of those types of things, I'd welcome you to download the materials, but then also look into Tier 1. Tier 1 is going to give you the baseline information that you need to understand the Extreme Event game at a deep level, be able to answer questions about it, know how to apply it within your community, within your organization. And it'll allow you the confidence that you need in order to really dive into the Extreme Event game delivery experience as a certified facilitator. So as Carrie mentioned, we designed the facilitator certification program with one sole goal, which is to prepare you or others like you to deliver the Extreme Event game for your community. And so this is a community engagement tool, as Carrie mentioned. And so our hope is to give you the resources, the tools, the techniques, the info, the credibility that you need in order to deliver the game as successfully as possible. And that's how Tier 1 program was designed. And our goal is to develop a cadre of those trained facilitators that can bring the Extreme Event game wherever it needs to go all around the world without being limited to, the people that work at LabX. And so we can train these facilitators to go out there and deliver the game, as often as they would like, with whatever audiences they would like. So that way the Extreme Event game's impact isn't localized to any one area, and that it can have a much greater impact around the world. Carrie, you want to add to that?
No, I think you covered it all.
Okay, cool. So why should you get certified? There's a few different reasons. One, we're going to give you all the resources, the tools, the tips, the techniques, all the background information that you need to be extremely confident and extremely competent in gameplay. So while you can download the materials, you'll get your facilitator guide, you'll get the scripts. Those will all be available to you. If you go to learn.labx.org today, you'll be able to download that for free, not a problem. And if that's your MO, totally fine. We're okay with that. The game is meant to be open and accessible to as many people as possible. However, for people who want to take it to the next level and want to advance their facilitation skills, not just for Extreme Event, but we made our facilitation skill modules agnostic to any application. So if you want to be a better facilitator, you want to run better meetings, if you want to facilitate better training, if you want to organize workshops, and if you want to deliver the Extreme Event game, Tier 1 is the place to start. We're going to kind of deepen your understanding of how Extreme Event game works, but then also give you the tools that you need to be a much better facilitator. And so to get certified at this level, kind of show you what this all looks like, Tier 1 is where you start. And so we're talking today about Tier 1 and Tier 2 because we are launching a Tier 2 cohort in the next couple of weeks. and we'll provide all the details that you need with that in just a couple minutes. But basically right now, if you're not a certified facilitator, or if you're not already engaged in the Tier 1 program, you'd be considered a candidate, right? So you're interested, maybe you've played the game, maybe you're curious about it, but you've never played it before, totally fine. To be Tier 1 certified, you only have to go through the self-guided modules in the Learning Lab. So in the LabX Learning Lab, which is learn.labx.org, like I mentioned, you can get certified with no experience necessary. You don't need to be a facilitator. You don't need to be a trainer. You don't need to be an emergency manager. You just need to be interested and available and attentive to the modules that we present. And in 10 to 12 hours of self-guided online content with some activities and some homework assignments that we grade and provide feedback for, you can get Tier 1 certified in just a couple of days. We have had people hustle through it and do it in, I think, as little as 2 days. That's kind of a lot, but it's absolutely possible. There's not a ton of requirements that you have to do outside of watching the modules and performing the interactive activities and the assignments and things that come along with them. So it's not super involved. It's not meant to be stressful. Tier 1 is meant for anyone who's interested in an extreme event and just wants to have a deeper understanding of how the game works. Now, from Tier 1, we go to Tier 2. That's the cohort that's starting up in the next couple of weeks, like I mentioned. Tier 2 takes what we learned in Tier 1 and adds additional context and additional clarity around competency, around technique, and also around credibility. So how can we take our facilitation skills to the next level and make sure, make sure that when we are delivering the extreme event game, that we're delivering it in the highest level, highest experience level possible. So when we think about how we can deliver the extreme event game in this program in Tier 2, you get an additional learning methodology beyond self-guided asynchronous content on the Learning Lab. We still have that. You still have a few hours of self-guided content, videos, activities, homework assignments, etc., just like in Tier 1. But you get the added benefit of joining a Tier 2 cohort, which will be a group of individuals that will be with you along your Tier 2 journey, who you can bounce ideas off of, who you can work with, who you'll be able to get feedback from, and be able to collaborate and coordinate with to make your game experience that much more exciting and that much more valuable. And so in your cohort, you'll have individuals from all different agencies and from all different geographies. So we'll have a good mix of different individuals and professionals that are using extreme event in ways that you might not necessarily, and in ways that you may not have even thought about. And so that'll advance your ability to apply what you learned in Tier 1, as well as the self-guided content in Tier 2 to take it to that next level. Tier 3 is still in development, but the idea here is that eventually, once we have enough people through Tier 1 and the Tier 2 program, Tier 3 will be the master level certification. This is for people who want to make extreme event a part of their job. Maybe you want to travel around the country or around the world delivering extreme event game at conferences and events. Maybe this is something that you want to turn into a roadshow and like get paid for as a retirement gig or something like that. There are lots of different ways that you can use extreme event game in your career and to advance your status as a facilitator. And that's where the Tier 3 master certification program is coming from. Carrie, did I miss anything here?
Nope.
Okay, cool. All of this exists in the Tier 1 program as well. We go through this step by step, so that way you have a better idea of how this all flows. You can go from Tier 1 to Tier 2, like I mentioned, in about a week. And so in a couple of slides, we're going to go through how you can do that if you're interested in joining our first cohort in August, the one that we have coming up. You'll be able to do that if you do the Tier 1 and Tier 2 programs at the same time. And we are actually kind of grandfathering or waiving some of those requirements. So that way we can get as many people as possible that want to get into that Tier 2 cohort in August. We'll get them enrolled. So what should you expect in Tier 1? Like I mentioned, it's about 12 or so hours of self-guided online instructional content. So it's led by a facilitator, but it's pre-recorded. And so you'll hear a lot of my voice. You'll hear also from Kyle. I think you also hear from Carrie and Nia, a whole group of professional facilitators and presenters that are designing content and delivering content to make you a better facilitator and to give you all the information you need phase by phase, step by step, minute by minute, to make sure that you understand the gameplay of extreme event in as much detail as you need. What's great about the Tier 1 program is that you can always go back to that as well. And so I've heard from other Tier 1 certified facilitators that they go back to certain modules in particular, like a phase by phase breakdown of the extreme event game, where we go through every single element of the game, where you might run into sticking points, where you could run into issues, how you can customize the game, and all those types of things. They'll go back and watch that module before they deliver the game. So that way they have a good understanding and a good reminder of what content was important to them. They take notes in their facilitator guide, and they have all the resources that they need to be successful in their next delivery. There are take-home assignments, like I mentioned, as well as activities throughout the modules. It is really interactive. There's obviously a lot of video, but there's a lot of interactive activities and homework assignments that you'll complete, and we'll be getting feedback from us as well from the LabX team. And now, if you were to just take the Tier 1 program and not get a discount, now you went to a webinar, which means you know you're going to get a discount, right? You would have to pay $350, which I think is actually really, really fair. When you look at other programs like this that have 10+ hours of content that offer an actual certification, you're going to get a badge, you're going to get a certificate at the end of all this. You're getting an actual credential for $350. That really, really isn't bad. I know I've personally spent thousands of dollars on credentials over the years for various things related to training or related to emergency management and those types. So obviously this is something that you can do. The other thing too to note is that if you're not super familiar with it, you can usually talk to your HR department or even maybe your supervisor and see if they have any sort of professional development or continuing education funding that they may sponsor this type of thing. And especially given the fact that it is a lower price tag, a lot of the offices that we've talked to, a lot of the grant programs and programs that are under grants, they've found success in applying for those funds and putting Tier 1 or Tier 2 programming underneath it. Tier 2, this is what you can expect here. This is going to be 15+ hours of instructional content, so just a little bit more than the original Tier 1 program, building on everything that we learned there. And the focus, as I mentioned, is on credibility, competency, and technique with the extreme event game, and a focus on facilitation best practices, as well as what we're calling watch out scenarios, issues that could pop up during gameplay that an experienced facilitator would know to watch out for, but that we're educating everyone who goes through the Tier 2 program to make sure that they know how to avoid and know how to manage when those situations pop up. So it's all about enhancing and refining your facilitation skills, breaking bad habits, and then also getting a review of how you're delivering the program. So Tier 1 is all self-guided, like I mentioned, which means you have some homework, you have some activities, but Tier 2 allows you to actually present in a group and talk with a group, talk with your cohort, talk with a master facilitator, get your questions answered, get ideas from your peers and from your cohort to take your extreme event game experience to the next level. And so that's something that you don't necessarily get with the Tier 1 program. And what you'll find is that everyone who's in Tier 2 has already completed Tier 1 and has already started their journey toward delivering extreme event game in a much more competent and complete manner. So Tier 2, a little bit more of an investment with this one, $495. But again, you could do Tier 1 and Tier 2 just at the sticker price for less than $1,000. And like I said, I've spent more than $1,000 on a single certification before. So this is a solid investment. However, we are about to give you a discount code to do Tier 1 and Tier 2 and save, I think it's like $250 or so on that sticker price. So stay tuned for that. This is going to be the layout for our cohorts for the remainder of the year. So feel free to screenshot this slide. If you're interested in joining one of our cohorts, these will be the dates. So in looking at the cohort program here, our first cohort, number 01 for 2023, is going to be starting on the 16th of August. And then it'll be rolling with these additional 3 sessions, 23rd and the 30th of August, and then wrapping up on September the 6th. So this one is a little bit of an accelerated timetable. You'll notice some of the others have more time in between some of the sessions to give time for homework assignments and those types of things. The Tier 2 Cohort 1 program is going to be a little bit more accelerated since we're going to be getting people through the program and getting their feedback based on some of the changes that we made over the last year to 2 years from when this program was initially designed. So if you're interested in that, if you want to be a part of that program, if you want to see kind of where we've been going with this whole program since we won the World Changing Ideas Award, as well as when we ran our pilots back during COVID in 2020 and 2021, this is the culmination of all of that research, all of that work, and all of the feedback that we've gotten from the facilitators that are located all around the world. So you can scan this QR code, that'll get you to the bundle if you want to register for Tier 1 and Tier 2. The only requirement that we have, if you want to join this first cohort starting on August 16th, is you need to have tier 1 completed by the time you go to that first session on the 16th. So while I mentioned you can do it in a day or two, you're definitely you're definitely not gonna want to do that. So we kind of have a deadline of about a week or so before the cohort begins to get you into tier 1. So you'll want to register for that pretty soon. And we'll just make sure that everyone gets on board with that. And we'll share the link to the bundle in the chat as well. Make sure that everyone can see our slides here. I just get a thumbs up if everybody can see the slides. Just making sure. All right, cool. Looks like some people are seeing them. So I think we might have a tech issue with Leslie. Nia, can you shoot a message to Leslie and we'll get that taken care of? Sorry about that, Leslie. We'll share these slides with everyone via email after this though as well. So we'll make sure that you have all the information that you need. And then we'll also drop all the links and stuff that we've mentioned in this in the chat and during the live intro session. So that way you have all the info that you need. So don't worry about that. You can feel free to just listen, take a chill, and we'll make sure that we share everything else. But this is the outline of what that tier 2 cohort is going to look like. So we have sessions 0 through 3. Basically what we're doing is in the first session is going to be orientation and a welcome. Basically that'll give you introductions to everyone in your cohort, and we'll be sharing the first homework assignments in that session as well. Talk about the structure of the program, how everything's going to work over the next few weeks, and then also give an orientation to the LabX Extreme Event Learning Lab. The next session will be focused on competency. The third session will be focused on credibility. And then the final session will be focused on technique. So each of these will be about 2.5 hours. The first one may be a little bit shorter than that just because it's mostly introductions and getting people oriented to the program. But competency, credibility, technique for sure. Those will be about 2.5 hours. And then in between, the way that it works is there's content that you have to review and homework assignments that you have to do in between each of the live sessions to make sure that you're prepared for the next one that's coming up. So just watch out for that. That's how the program is going to work. And again, if you're looking at the slides, you can feel free to scan the QR code and get a little bit more information. If you have navigated to that QR code, you'll notice that there is a bundle price that saves you about $215 on the sticker price to get enrolled in tier 1 and tier 2 at the same time. But in a second, I'm going to give you an additional discount code to take 5% additional off of that already discounted rate, just because we want to get everybody into the tier 1 and tier 2 program with enough time to complete tier 1 and get enrolled in the tier 2 and make sure that you're in the cohort that you want to be in. We're not just enrolling people in the first cohort, even though that's the one that I'm talking about right now, because it is coming up in a couple weeks. If you do enroll in the bundle, or if you just enroll in tier 2, say you're already certified at the tier 1 level, you will enroll in basically what we're calling like a feeder course. And then you can let us know which cohort you want to be in, and then we will add you to the appropriate cohort once that cohort rolls around. So if you look at those dates that I shared earlier, if you were able to grab a screenshot of that slide, then you can enroll for any of those cohorts. There's not necessarily an application period for each one. You can enroll in any of them at any time. Just know, like I mentioned, you have to register at least a week prior if you don't already have the tier 1 certification. Carrie, anything you want to add in here? Anything that you think we might need to clarify a little bit more?
No, I think you covered everything.
Okay, cool. Well, here is that discount code. So if you go to the bundle that I just mentioned, and we'll share the URL in the chat for that bundle as well. You can use the code bundle5 for an additional 5% off. And you'll be able to just put that in right at the checkout page. So you can go and check out, see what the modules are. You can see the outline of the tier 1 and tier 2 programs. And then also you'll see some FAQ type content. So question and answers related to how the programs work. And if you have any additional questions, you can feel free to email us at learn@labx.org. Super easy to shoot us an email, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have. And like I mentioned, we'll be sharing these slides as well. So if you need any additional context, that'd be an easy way to get it. So like I mentioned, when you use that promo code, you're going to be saving $246.50. So if you are bringing this to your supervisor or your HR department, make sure you let them know that you've already gotten them a good deal. And if you do have any sort of professional development or continuing education funds, chances are that this is going to fall under that threshold. I know a lot of programs offer, a few $1,000s per employee per year, and most people don't use those funds, which means that sometimes you can even tap into other departments or other individuals' funds as well, since they have already been allocated for most organizations. Now, not every organization has that, but a lot of them do, especially if you're coming from government, corporate, higher education, et cetera. Those programs really exist to help. So to recap, no experience is required to enroll in this program. You will be joining a community, especially if you enroll in the bundle. You'll be added to your tier 2 cohort really, really soon. So be able to engage, interact with them, be introduced to them during that live first session. And then you'll just get all the content. So we're talking, almost 30 hours of content to help advance your facilitator skill sets, and also make sure that you're as credible and competent as possible in delivering an extreme event, but also that your experience related to emergency management and disasters and educating, people from all ages on how to become better prepared and how to be more resilient within their community. All of that is included in there, along with all the materials, the facilitator guide, guidance on how to customize your materials as well, and then advanced, skills and advice related to finding hosts, related to filling the room and marketing the extreme event game to make sure that everyone has a successful experience, and also how to apply it and customize it to meet your program's unique needs, whether that's in education or in the public safety space or corporate team building. Whatever your goals and objectives are, there's insight in there into how to make that much more successful and much more impactful, rather than just downloading the materials from the website. So that's all the stuff that you're going to be getting. If you don't think that's for you, that's totally fine. Not everyone needs to get facilitator certified, and not everyone has an interest or the ability to do so. And we respect that, and that's totally okay. The game is still there for you, and this program is still available to come to your community. We would still love for your support. And if you think this is a cool program, if you think that what we're doing is worthwhile, we would love if you would follow and share anything that you'd like about this program, about LabX, about Extreme Event, with any of your colleagues or friends. We are on all the major social media platforms, and we would love to hear from you there. And we also have a LinkedIn group for facilitator certified individuals as well. So if you do register for that bundle, you'll see links to that in the tier 1 and tier 2 cohort programs. So with that, we'll drop it into Q&A. Carrie, any final thoughts before we do that?
No, I'd love to hear if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, so feel free in the chat to drop in any questions that you might have. There is a Q&A function. You can also drop it in there. We have both Nia and Noir in there, and they can feel free to flag us down with any questions that you might have, and we'll be sure to answer any of them. Jim Groves, my buddy Jim Groves, for the future of Extreme Event, will there be any updates or expansion? Carrie, what do you think?
We get this question all the time. People want all different versions of the Extreme Event game. And my answer to that is probably not. The game, once you get into the materials, and especially if you get into the tier 1 of the certification program, you'll start to see that even though we have the 3 different scenarios, we have hurricane, flood, and earthquake, the gameplay and the learning outcomes of all 3 are the same. So the game was not designed to teach people how to respond to a hurricane, how to respond to a flood, or how to respond to an earthquake. It's meant to educate people about resilience in general and working together as a community, activating cross-sector collaborations, things like that. So the scenario is kind of independent of what we want people to walk away with after they experience the game.
Love it. I think that was probably the best way you've answered that question in my historical memory.
I've had a lot of practice.
Yeah, we get asked that a lot, and it comes down to just making it as agnostic and approachable as possible to as many communities as possible. We have heard, with that said, we have heard other individuals making customizations that work for them. We're okay with that as long as you keep the essence of the game secure. And we actually do teach that in the tier 2 program of like, how do you maintain the essence of extreme event game while customizing little bits of it. And so if you're really interested in doing that, so you're interested in incorporating more local themes, or maybe you want to, I don't know, there's a lot of different ways you could do it. Tier 2 would be the way to do that in a way that's agreeable to the LabX brand and doesn't detract or distract from the overarching goals of the extreme event game program and the research that it's based on. So, once you start going off script, it can get a little bit dangerous, but we'll be sure to share those little knowledge nuggets with everyone as part of the tier 2 program. Thanks for that question, Jim. Any other questions?
So Paula asked, what is the cost of just tier 1?
Yeah, so I'll go back to the tier 1 slide real quick. So that way you can see. So tier 1 is $350 just to do that program. However, it is discounted currently if you go to the website. If you go to learn.labx.org, scroll down maybe like a third or a quarter of the way down the page, you'll see it there. And it is marked down actually to $295 right now. So just shy of $300. And what's cool about that, the tier 1 program, is as soon as you register, you're enrolled. There's no waiting period. There's no application. You don't have to select a cohort. You're in. So you can get all the materials and start learning right away. And since I'm back here, I'll also bring up tier 2. Tier 2 is normally $495. And right now we are running a discount for that individual certification as well at $450. However, if you're thinking of enrolling at tier 2, I would say that you are going to want to enroll in the bundle, just because I think the odds of you having tier 1 and looking for tier 2, I think, are slim if you're on this webinar. Most of the people that I know that are certified at the tier 1 level, they know how to get to tier 2. And we've already, given discount codes to those individuals to get them into the cohorts. So if you're curious about what tier 2 looks like, that's where I would recommend scanning this QR code and joining us for tier 1 and tier 2 in the next few weeks.
Alex wants to know, can we provide a little more information on how the game is actually played and what all is involved? I would love to. So I will say, after I explain this, it's still sometimes hard to totally grasp without seeing it. If you go to learn.labx.org and create an account, it's completely free to go through those first modules, which will include videos that are also on our YouTube that actually do show people playing the game to give you a better idea. But I will summarize it as best I can, which I also have a lot of experience doing. So you start with anywhere from 12 to 48 players, and you have a facilitator. Usually we recommend that you have a co-facilitator as well, as 2 sets of hands are always better than 1 in the room. You divide your players into 6 different groups. They are separated into what we call sectors. So you have things like you have a household sector, you have emergency responders, you have the local government, you have community groups, things like that. And then within each of those 6 sectors, each person is assigned a role. So that's where the role-playing game comes in. So they might be a faith leader in the community groups, or they might be a college student, or they might be the superintendent of the schools. So everyone takes on that role within their sector. Each group is then given a set of resource cards. The game gives them information about the fictional city where the game takes place. And using that information, they decide of those resource cards, they can only keep 12 of those resources. The other 12 they have to give back. Once they do that is when the disaster happens. So like we mentioned earlier, you have flood, hurricane, or earthquake, which you decide in advance which one you're actually doing. The players then get mixed up. They're no longer in those sector groups, and now they're in 6 different neighborhoods which exist in this fictional city. So everyone has taken a couple of those resource cards with them to their new group. And in each group, you have a poster board that is that group's challenge. So in that neighborhood, they're each facing a different challenge as a result of the disaster. It might be you have to prioritize 2 different search and rescue instances. It might be that the hospital is out of power. Are you going to try to get a generator, or are you going to evacuate people to other hospitals? Things like that. So you have two options in each group to solve your challenge, and you have to try to use the resources that you selected in the first part of the game to solve the challenge in the second part. The key being, of course, none of the groups will have everything that they need, and people are then moving around the room. They're trading resources, they're bargaining. Some people aren't sharing resources. Some people are much more willing to share the resources. And during this time, as the facilitator, you're watching the gameplay. You can inject different challenges into the gameplay. So if one group is kind of finishing too quickly, you can send them a power outage, which if they have a generator on their board, it takes away their generator. You can do a bridge collapse, things like that, to not only replicate what does happen during actual disaster scenarios, but also just to make the gameplay a little bit more challenging. Once that portion wraps up, you go on to the kind of debrief where each group talks about the decisions they made and why. And then at the end, you have a facilitated discussion with the room about what happened, you know, what sort of group dynamics played out during the game and how that relates to actual disasters. And that's an hour extreme event game in 5 minutes.
Love it. Can tell she's explained it a few times. And that underscores the importance of why a facilitator is involved in this process. We get asked a lot of times, why is an extreme event game like a board game, a traditional board game? And the idea is that we have a much better experience, a much deeper and more rich experience with many different people coming to the table and engaging with the game together. And the facilitator is there to make sure that the gameplay operates effectively, but then also to facilitate the conversations that happen around the gameplay. So like we mentioned, the game is one thing, and it's very fun, it's very informative. However, if everybody just has a great gameplay experience, that all stays in the room. The goal for the final phases of the game is for the facilitator to now take that experience that everyone just had collectively in the room and be able to apply it to your local jurisdiction. So we get asked a lot about customizations. That's where the customization can really come in and be really colorful, because now you get to talk about, okay, so we experienced this challenge in the second phase of the game. How did this show up during our most recent tornado 6 weeks ago, right? Like, you can have conversations around current events and issues and things like that and make it more relevant to your local community. But by doing so, on the backbone and the backdrop of the game itself, now everyone has some contribution to the conversation, rather than saying, oh, I just moved here, I didn't actually experience the tornado. Now everyone has some experience and has some reason to engage in the conversation, and a strong facilitator absolutely has the power there to engage and enrich those conversations much further. So that's why tier 1 and tier 2 is so important, is because we are giving the skills, and you'll have the skills and the confidence that you need in order to facilitate those conversations, make them worthwhile, and then also activate those individuals to go and do something afterwards, whether it's join and engage in their CERT program, or go and build an emergency kit, or join a local volunteer group that's active after disasters. You name it, there's different ways that you could activate those people to get them engaged. And it could be as simple as just sending them home with more knowledge and more understanding of how their community and their family play into the disaster landscape. So that's why the facilitators exist, and that's why the program was designed the way that it was. So you get to do all of those things in 60 to 90 minutes. And we see a lot of people putting them before other opportunities, other events, and things like that, to make it that much more impactful and that much more engaging. So with that, I'm not seeing any additional questions. Nawar, Nia, did we miss any that were sent maybe to you guys?
Nope.
Not on my end.
Yep.
Okay, well then, as a final reminder, feel free to use the bundle 5 promo code at the link that we shared in the chat, and from the QR code that we shared a little bit earlier, if you would like to register for tier 1 and tier 2. If you have any issues, if you have any questions, if you're still not sure if it's right for you, just send us an email, learn@labx.org. We'll get back to you, usually within 24 hours if we can. And we're really, really excited to get you engaged in the program. This program has been many years in the making, and this game itself has been around for just about a decade now, a little bit longer actually. And so really, really excited to have this program and have so many people interested in the Tier 1 and Tier 2 facilitator certification programs, because we're really, really excited to get a cadre of facilitators out into the world and sharing Extreme Event with all of your communities. So with that, we'll say thank you so much for coming. And if you have any additional questions, shoot us an email. If not, check out learn.labx.org if you'd like to see any videos, gameplay footage, download the materials. And if you'd like more information on Tier 1, Tier 2, or the bundle offering that we mentioned, if you do register for the bundle, make sure you use that promo code BUNDLE5. With that, we'll give you guys 5 extra minutes back into your day, and we'll say thanks.
Have a good day, everybody.
Bye, everyone.